You're watching HuffPost Live. I'm Caitlin Becker. Flipping through interior design magazines may give you a pang of jealousy, but creating a beautiful space is easier than you think. To tell us how we can live a more stylish life, we are joined by design expert Nicole Gibbons. Welcome.
Hello.
I'm so pleased to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
So your whole motto around sort of design is that we should have a design we love and have it be stylish at the same time.
Absolutely.
How do we do that?
Well, so there's a few ways that you can incorporate style into your home. One is color. You know, color can totally transform a room, and I always tell people that one of the easiest and most inexpensive ways to add color is to paint, because a gallon of paint is $30 and it'll totally transform a space. This picture here, it's a really beautiful pink bedroom, and the color is what makes it come alive. And so, you know, not everybody wants to take the risk of painting an entire room a bold color. So if you're not able to, you know, deal with such a large volume of color, you can incorporate it in smaller doses. So, you know, bringing in color through accessories and keeping your room neutral. This picture, the room is, you know, pretty white and neutral, but all the color is brought in through accessories and the dining chairs. So again, it's an easier commitment to have blue dining chairs versus a wall swathed in blue.
What happens when you don't have any style when it comes to your home decor, but you want something that looks put together? I know so many people who struggle with how to make their homes look interior design worthy, but have no idea how to do it.
Totally. Well, the number one thing I always tell people is to hire a decorator. But if you can't hire a decorator, there's little styling tips and tricks that decorators use to really make your home feel really and look really stylish. And when you look at magazines, you know, people always show me pictures of a house they love in Domino. And what most people don't realize is when they're looking at those glossy magazines, every one of those photo shoots has an on-set stylist that makes every detail look picture perfect. So there's a few, you know, like tabletop surfaces, your coffee table. That's a perfect space that you can easily transform. I love to restyle my coffee table every couple of weeks, and it's one of those little details that really makes the room feel finished. Here's an Instagram of my own, a couple Instagrams of my own coffee table. So there's elements here that make it look really styled. Stacks of coffee table books is number one. Love that. It's a great styling trick that a lot of people use when they're, you know, working on photo shoots. A tray. It's a great way to corral clutter. Fresh flowers adds color and life. So, you know, all these little elements put together really makes the look feel refined and elegant and totally styled, like it's fresh off the pages of a magazine.
Is design something that you found innate, or is it something that you had to really sort of work to find? Because you didn't start off as an interior designer.
Yeah, no, I took a long detour before I discovered my passion for design, but I do think that my creative sensibilities and just taste level and sense of style has always been innate. You know, growing up, I painted and I drew and I played music, and I was always really, really creative. And my mom is a decorator, so I grew up around the business. I grew up going with her to the design center in Michigan, which is where we're from. And, you know, so I've always been exposed to good design and had the opportunity to cultivate my eye throughout the course of my lifetime. But it definitely took some time. You know, most kids coming out of school, like me at 21, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I also didn't want to put too much pressure on myself to figure it out, you know.
Was it scary to jump careers?
No, it was a long process. I worked in PR for probably 4 or 5 years before I thought that design might be something I would want to do as a career. So, you know, I started a blog in 2008, and through the process of writing that blog and really immersing myself in the design industry and in the design community in New York, I realized this is an environment I want to work in. These are people I want to work with, and this is what I want to do with my life. And then that was around, you know, the biggest downturn in the economy of my lifetime. And so, not the time to be quitting your day job. So I stuck it out for a few more years while I educated myself. I took classes. I talked to everybody I knew in the business for advice. I set up an LLC and started taking on really small projects just to, you know, kind of get my feet wet. And then, you know, just last year in January is when I finally took the leap to focus on this full time, and it's been an incredible ride.
Being in New York, you must be faced with such an interesting set of design challenges because so many New Yorkers are renters.
Yeah.
And, you know, in a lot of big cities, most people are renters and not owners. They are inhibited by not being able to use wallpaper or not being able to change really hideous tile or, you know, appliances or hardwood floors. How do you work around that from a design perspective? The floors in my apartment are hardwood, but they're kind of an orangey color, and I don't love that color of wood. I'd love something either much darker or much lighter, but I'm kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, I have the same, I call it #2 pencil orange floors in my rental. And the biggest thing you can do is get a really great rug to hide it and layer your decor so that there's many more interesting things to focus on besides the floor. You know, if you have beautiful furniture, a fabulous rug, you know, amazing curtains, you know, incredible artwork on the walls, you won't notice those #2 pencil orange floors.
What are some common mistakes that people make when they're trying to put together a space? Because I'm looking at this right here. Everything's put together sort of to a T perfectly. There's just enough, there's not too much. I feel like if I did it, I'd have either, I'm a mishmash of things. I love lots of stuff. And so I just keep piling more and more on top of it.
I mean, this is actually a picture of my living room, which is really,
of course it is.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things too is just really mixing things up. I have a really modern sofa, a French inspired coffee table and chairs, a Moroccan rug, you know, really traditional lamps in a fun, bold color. It all just works together really seamlessly because I use different elements to unify the space. The pillows match the lamps, and it all just sort of works together. So I always think that mixing things up is far more interesting than being too matchy-matchy, which is one of the common decor mistakes that a lot of people make. They want to match everything. They don't know what to do with their space. So, you know, the picture that is just flashing, you see the fabric matches.
That is terrifying.
It's the same pattern on the, and it's a lovely fabric, but
you talk about the animal print pillow in the middle that just sort of comes out of nowhere, like someone left it in there accidentally.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful fabric, but it's on the sofa, it's on the lampshades, it's on the walls, it's on the curtains, it's a lot. And so, you know, being too matchy-matchy is definitely a big mistake, and it's better to break it up, break up the pattern, break up even the colors. So what I would have done here, if you were doing a really bold sofa like that in a fun fabric, is keep the walls neutral, keep your curtains neutral, you know, and keep the pattern on the floor relatively subtle, and then it would work really nicely.
I've noticed a lot of homes are in the neutral palettes. They're sort of beiges or browns or grays, and there aren't a lot of color. What kind of colors or patterns work with something in sort of that sort of brown, beige, drab family?
Well, I think anything, because I consider browns and beiges neutrals, and really any color can match a neutral. So, you know, I know a lot of people, for example, you mentioned brown, then everything is in that family, brown and tan, and, you know, but throw in a hint of red with that brown and it would look totally fabulous, or a pop of pink if you're really feminine, or, you know, a hint of orange. You can really, you know, add any color to a neutral, and gray is another, you know, kind of what I would consider a new neutral. You can, you know, gray and navy, gray and, you know, teal, peacock blue. I mean, you can really have fun with a neutral palette. It's actually really easy to decorate with the neutral palette because anything goes.
A lot of apartments and homes are set up in a way where the living room and dining room are connected, or the kitchen and the, you know, it's an eat-in kitchen and it's all connected. Should you keep your space one cohesive look, or do you want it to look separately? I mean, personally, particularly with apartment, you only have 2 rooms pretty much. So if your living room and your kitchen and your dining room are basically all attached, do you want everything to look the same?
Well, it should feel cohesive because it is considered one room, and that's the exact layout I have in my apartment. It's open kitchen with living and dining in one room, and so you do want to have your color palette pretty unified. You know, and then you can ground the areas though so that they feel separate without incorporating too many different colors or patterns. So, for example, use one rug to ground your seating area for your living room, and then one rug to ground your dining area, and maybe a pendant over your dining table, which will really define that space and separate it from, you know, the rest of the room. So absolutely, when you're working with an open palette or an open floor plan, you definitely want to keep your color palette cohesive.
One thing before we wrap up here that I noticed as I look through all of the photos is that everything has a place and nothing looks that lived in. My mom is super OCD, and her home that I grew up in looks like that every single day. Everything has a place, and if you put something out of place, she will sweep by and find a place for it. But that seems so unreasonable for everyone else in the world. When people aren't taking pictures of your apartment, does it look more lived in?
Oh, totally. There's stuff all over the sofa now, and I work from home, so it's like, you know, I have fabric samples everywhere. You can't always have a picture-perfect space. A lot of people have children. Houses with kids are never pristine, and it's okay. That's what, you know, your home should be lived in. And I always believe, whether I'm decorating for clients or on TV or whatever, the house should look and feel lived in, and nothing should be too precious. There's, you know, my mom, the house I grew up in, we had a white sofa in our living room that we couldn't sit on. So, you know, I just feel like, you know, home should be lived in and loved, and that's what makes it special.
Nicole, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And of course, for more style and design tips, visit Nicole's blog, So Haute, which can be found in our resource well below. And stick around, there's more conversations on HuffPost Live.